Well, good morning, good afternoon, good day to you. Welcome to Tech Talk from Zyxel. My name is Tri Nguyen. I am the Senior Product Manager here at Zyxel. I've been here for about 15 years, been in the industry for about 20 years now. So, well, what we wanted to do is a little bit different than what we normally do. It's a weekly interactive discussion forum where we try to run kind of regularly to provide kind of quick, informative sessions that's a little bit more interactive. So you might want to ask some questions in the Q&A box, or you can also use the chat box for discussion as well. So at the end of it, we'll have a Q&A session, and I will, if you have any questions that you want to ask me, we'll unmute you, let you ask those questions. So if you have a mic, you want to get that ready, so you can do that if you like, or we could just still do just via a Q&A section. So we'll start with a quick introduction of Zyxel. We'll present a discussion topic at hand, and then we'll open up, like I said, to a live Q&A session. So get those questions posted, and we'll do that. So don't forget also to follow us on Facebook and on YouTube as well. So let's go ahead and get started. How are you doing? It's been good here at Zyxel. There's a lot of fun things to learn about. And again, like I said, I want it to be a little bit more interactive and just kind of have a nice discussion about different technologies. And so this is kind of the first iteration of that. You can see the schedule over there as well. We'll have some, next week we'll have an introduction to Zyxel. If you're new to Zyxel, we'll also be talking on the 12th of March, securing business network. So that's something about network security, and also kind of the theme of the month of March seems like security. We'll do a UTM 101, so one of those kinds of discussion classes there. So let's go ahead and continue and start this program. So again, welcome. We are actually, we're Zyxel. We are celebrating our 30th year this year. Since 1989, we've been established. So we have over 1,500 employees worldwide, and about a third of the workforce is software and hardware engineers. And they're there to design the hardware. They're there to support the product, especially from partners like yourself, being able to offer us feedback, give us information about, hey, what's happening in the market, what challenges you're facing, what kind of feature functions you're looking for. And because we own the kind of the product, and we own the software itself, we can look at ways to integrate that to help you as a partner to be able to continue your business, to help ease whatever it may be. So we've also have over 700,000 businesses worldwide using Zyxel solutions, over 150 global markets, and connecting over 100 million devices, making these connections worldwide. We offer a comprehensive range of products. So we have solutions that work really end-to-end, giving kind of a one network experience. And we achieve this by different kind of innovative integrations. We combine this with a series of technologies, really to achieve a secure and easy user experience for both, not only you as an IT manager, but also for the end user as well. We have things like security appliances, which employs a series of solutions like advanced threat protection, antivirus filtering, spam filtering, intrusion detection, web filtering, application control. So really a lot of features that are there. And this is all part of feature set that gives us the ability to secure and encrypt connections, as well as VPN tunnels with high encryption connectivity. In the wireless space, we offer a wide range of wireless access points to cover any kind of applications needed in a business or in a vertical that you may be using out there. Local area switches, local area network switches. We provide like a huge range of anything from kind of a basic network to a fully managed complex network infrastructure, including like layer 2, layer 3 switches with and without power over Ethernet. Now, on the gateway side, we also provide kind of simple WAN connectivity with VPN connectivity, and also hotspot functionality. And all of these kind of systems can be managed through different management options via either standalone or in the cloud. So today I wanted to talk about, this topic of security or speed. And that's really the question that we're kind of having to deal with. So today we're going to discuss the balance between maximizing security for the small business and doing so at the kind of the fastest speeds possible. Usually they're kind of at odds with each other, right? So as far as security goes, anybody who, if you have any questions or comments or things like this, that's just something to think about. What are the challenges you are facing today that's related to both security and speed? And if you think about that, maybe you can ask those or put those into the Q&A section, and we can talk about it in the Q&A portion of the program. But today, let's look at why network security is important in terms of just securing overall, business. And we'll take a look at some stats here. So 58% of malware attack victims are categorized right now as small businesses. And so they are kind of the easy targets because they're not looking at kind of protection, or they're not realizing that they need protection. And like I usually tell my customers and my partners, we are all under the same internet. So why is the enterprise protecting themselves so greatly, right? They're also being targeted and attacked, but still we're in the same internet where there are many different types of breaches and kind of agnostic, they're not really targeted. They're just kind of a mass attack. 81% of breach victims do not have any means of detection. That means once they've been breached, they didn't even realize they are breached, right? They have no system in place that can handle that. That means businesses are not educated. I think that, they feel like using a basic NAT firewall is enough to protect them, right? They just go off the shelf, go to a kind of a consumer retail store, pick up what's called a firewall, and they go, okay, well, that's protecting me now. But most small business, kind of take that approach as well. It's like, well, it won't happen to me, or my consumer router is good enough because it doesn't seem like anything's happened, which kind of leaves them, very vulnerable to different types of attacks. And it's really not until they're either breached, attacked, or infected with ransomware where they then kind of go, oh, I need something and I'm going to take it seriously now. So that's when they reach out to a partner and say like, okay, now you have to fix my computer, fix my network, and provide me a solution that will prevent this from happening again. Right. So we want to bring this up to light to the customer, to you as partners, to kind of preach to the customers that this is very important to kind of take a proactive approach. 60% of small businesses say that attacks are becoming more severe and more sophisticated. And 67% of SMBs have experienced some sort of cyber attack in the last 12 months. So, that just means that people are just vulnerable. And of course, with more severe and sophisticated attacks, don't you think that we need to consider more sophisticated defense mechanisms, right? We need to improve the way that we're protecting these networks because, the threats are just getting more and more complex or more sophisticated in the process. So you kind of can't just use something, simple just to try to block something that's very sophisticated. You're going to get infiltrated. And also every 39 seconds, there is a hacker attack happening. And so there's about 480 new threats are discovered every minute, according to McAfee Labs. So threats are coming out everywhere, right? They're bombarded. And you'd be surprised how quickly, if you accidentally plugged your computer or plugged in, kind of a honeypot machine directly to the internet with no firewall, you'll see how quickly that thing just gets, bombarded with things. Or even when you hook up your firewall to that and you enable your logs. I just hooked up one of the newer firewalls at my house. And the moment I put it on there, the logs just filled up with all sorts of kind of traffic that's coming from who knows where, trying to get to that IP address already. And it's just a new kind of service that just got, enabled. So you may have heard of software as a service or hardware as a service, right? But today there are sites that offer ransomware as a service. So that's ransomware. You can go and use a service. You pay some site to go and make viruses for you, or what they call used for educational purposes, right? So it's kind of funny that they would use that as kind of their guise behind it, but really that's what they're doing. They're allowing people to create ransomware and then take that and go and create these variants to go and kind of spread an attack. So that's kind of mind-boggling that people would do that and that they would actually have a service that does that. So that's a little bit on the security side. And today's application, and especially the availability that's out there, it's really feeding the need and feeding the adoption rate of faster internet speeds. To the point where it's kind of going beyond current, kind of hardware capabilities. So it's moving a lot quicker than the hardware is kind of trying to keep up. So that kind of becomes a little bit of a problem. So based on speed test from Ookla, the average download speed in the United States right now is about 96, just over 96 megabits per second. So that's the fixed kind of broadband speeds right now, and the average upload speed is about 33 megabits per second. So my speeds at home is actually, you know, in that kind of range already. So in the business space, it's becoming more and more widely available to have speeds that are much higher than your typical, you know, 25 megabits, 50 megabits. And so we'll continue to see that trend increase as well with 5G coming out, and gigabit fiber to the home as it rolls out to become more available and more affordable in the mainstream cities. So we'll only see the speeds getting faster, and that's really driven by, you know, higher demand. And did you know the average internet user in the United States spends about 6.5 hours online, and that counts on kind of every device. So either your computer, your mobile phone, your tablets. But we're actually not the most. Thailand actually leads the world with 9.5 hours spent. So it's 3 more extra hours that they're doing on tablets. I don't know. So maybe they're a prisoner of their devices, I guess. But I guess we all are, right? We're all using our devices for something, for some sort of application, for streaming, for you know, for business, for work. Everything is used in a internet kind of space. So the need for speed continues to grow. And just kind of give a little perspective of why speed is kind of important. If you put need in perspective, the download time that it would take to download a 3 to 4 gigabit file would take about 32 minutes to download on a 20 meg connection. And people typically say, well, 20 megabits per second is pretty good. But with a gigabit connection, it only takes 25 seconds. So everybody is all about, you know, I don't have time for this, right? I can't wait for downloads. I can't wait for this to load. And especially as things are moved to the cloud, more and more applications are going there, right? So we have more applications moved to the cloud side. That really puts a lot of pressure to get higher bandwidth WAN connections. So when that comes into play, then the ISP will provide more of that. And that's kind of a positive thing, because people are going through an upgrade cycle. But it also could lead to issues because you have to then find the right device that can handle those upgraded speeds, right? So even upgrading your modem to be able to support those higher speeds. But more importantly, about your firewall, that's going to be the biggest kind of issue, especially for the security that you're looking at kind of maintaining. And you may already be planning these things, you know, when you're planning out kind of an application or a network environment. Typically, we always say, well, about every user has 3 to 4 devices connected. We know that they'll use voice, video, and data applications. And there might be also servers, backups, cloud, you know, machines, and also that backups to cloud, backup to local PCs. And the PCs all have to have access to the cloud as well. So of course, the ISPs are racing to see who can have the best offering. It's all about trying to get that edge of oh, I have a higher speed than them for the same price or even less of price. So 100 megabits to 1 gig or even higher is available today, and it's becoming more and more affordable. And because of this, it's easy for a customer to do really a speed test nowadays, right? They could just go to speedtest.net, do a speed test, and to see what kind of advertised speeds they get. And especially in this hardware cycle, or in this kind of time frame that we are in right now, in this upgrade cycle, the hardware in most cases are becoming now the bottleneck. So older hardware cannot keep up, especially if you have security functionalities kind of enabled there. And we'll talk a little bit about why too as well. So these are kind of at odds. I mean, you need to have more security because it's more sophisticated attacks. You have the need to make sure that the threats are being kind of kept at bay. And so you need deeper inspection of the packets, et cetera. But that requires more computational power just to maintain that security level. And so that actually results in a lower throughput speed. So where do you find that balance? So conventional security UTM products provide really a first line of defense. But they rely on known signatures, heuristics, reputation for attacks, things like that. And so they need to know those things in order to take action on mitigating those threats. So they usually use some sort of like level layer 7 deep packet inspection to do the analysis, or to do kind of the view into these packets. And it's very processor intensive. And every packet has to get analyzed. So there's a lot of packets that move through, especially when you're trying to push more traffic. So more traffic, more analysis, the computer or the CPU has to do a lot more work. So higher security always equals typically slower speeds. So based on kind of the scan classification that UTM does, It will look, whether anti-spam, antivirus, application control, content filtering. It can see that, hey, these are either known good packets, good known products, or a known bad products, or sorry, known bad packets. So it can decide whether it is, pass or kind of fail, right? So that's the easy kind of scenario. But there are some areas where they're kind of gray. We call them kind of gray area packets. And it could be a good packet or it's suspicious. We are not completely sure. So conventional UTM really cannot identify. Otherwise, you get a lot of false positives, right? So traffic would probably not go through if you decided to make it very strict. So this is where we need some sort of advanced threat protection, some sort of sandboxing or AI to manage and identify these kinds of threats, because then you have to kind of see, are they really good or bad? In fact, unknown attacks have been soaring, as a top technique used today. So that is kind of a big deal now, because most attacks are now using some sort of unknown kind of attack. So of course, just to summarize, you have to increase in security. So increasing security requires more processing, which then results in lower speeds. So if you look at data sheets numbers, from kind of anybody in the industry, you'll notice right away that there's kind of two numbers. One is the SPI firewall. That's your basic line firewall throughput, which has no security really turned on, just NAT capabilities, things like that. And you'll see this number. And then they'll usually give kind of a full UTM scanning number. And that's, you'll notice the speeds are probably like 1/10 of the speed of using SPI firewall. Because again, you're now analyzing the packets rather than just pushing the packets through. You're actually analyzing each one. You're opening them up, checking the headers to see what kind of packet it is. You can identify and say, hey, this is a Skype packet, and then make some decisions on whether to block it, to prioritize it, to allow it, that kind of thing. So this means in order for you to get a higher throughput to fulfill kind of your network, your new internet connection, you have to get a higher rated device, which usually has higher throughput speeds. So, but in doing so, it will cost more. So there's a problem. There wasn't really a problem before because our internet connections were kind of around 25 to 50 megabits per second. There was a few that got to around 100 megabits per second. And that wasn't too bad because people, when they would do their speedtest.net kind of testing, it would be 50 megs to 100 megs, et cetera. So they didn't really notice or see a problem. But now that they've upgraded to 200 to 300 megs or even more, now they're seeing the connections are way below what they are expecting. The common common workaround I think most vendors tend to have is like, well, if you want to have faster speeds, why don't you just disable some of your security features, right? I don't get that. It's kind of like you go and buy a whole security system for your house and then deciding to just leave your alarm system turned off because it makes it easier for you to get in and out of the house without having to, type the code in, right? It's kind of, it doesn't make sense. So why would you do that? And of course, you could spend more money to get those expensive hardware devices to get the better connection there. Or you could just accept the fact that your internet connection is going to be lower speeds than what you're paying for. And of course, we don't think that that's a good good solution there. So Zyxel actually has a product that not only can protect on the traditional layer of UTM, but also detect these unknown threats through sandboxing and using AI. So unknown files are then isolated, they're analyzed in the cloud, and then they share this information across the entire kind of cloud network. So what you may find in your network will then be beneficial to actually all devices across all of your networks, but everyone else's network as well. So we're sharing that file information on whether it's a good or a bad file across the entire network worldwide. So as time progresses, the AI basically gets smarter and smarter. And so it's also a balance of best of both worlds, we say. And of course, with all the UTM features enabled, we're still able to provide very cost-effective, high speed throughput. And so Zyxel ATP Ceres is the product that we're looking at, or we have right now, that is the best of both worlds. It brings sophisticated, advanced threat protection with the speed that meets like small businesses upgrades, and really more importantly, at the price point that makes sense for small businesses. Right now, there's a big gap between the device speed or the throughput required for security, and what the small business is paying for, or in terms of what they need. So right now, in terms of, they may be paying, let's say, $100 for a 300 meg internet connection in their business, but in order to fulfill that, if they didn't go with the ATP, they would have to spend probably $1,000 to $2,000 to get a device that's robust enough in order to meet that speed, which kind of doesn't make sense. So this really makes sense in terms of for small businesses. It's feature packed with functions like sandboxing, web security, malware blocking, intrusion detection, GeoIP enforcement, and can support speeds of up to 700 megabits of real throughput. So that's kind of like when you're doing the real test. Typically, again, just as a kind of a note, whatever you usually see in any kind of data sheet that's out there for any kind of vendor that's out there, they usually are doing tests that are the max theoretical throughput, meaning that they're using the largest packet size possible in order to push it through to see what is kind of the breakpoint or the maximum possible. But of course, real world traffic is not the full size packet. It's not like 1,500 bytes. So it typically is kind of a variation depending on what kind of product or what kind of service it is. The packet sizes are different. So usually you'll take the number, you either divide it in half to make it simple, or it's usually kind of between 50 to 65% of that number is what you'll probably experience in a real world environment. So make sure that when you're kind of looking at providing the solution to your customer and kind of gauging which model to use, that's what you'll have to kind of use as a guideline. And of course, we'll have in our UTM 101 discussion session, like in a few weeks, we'll talk more about these kind of features of UTM. So we'll dive a little bit deeper in those, why they're important, and why they really pertain to small businesses today. So we want to use also ATP because it has that SmartCloud integration. So it identifies those threats, like I mentioned earlier, they update it to a database, and that becomes now more effective in terms of blocking across the entire world. And of course, when different files or different threats are discovered elsewhere, it also benefits you and your customers as well. So this is that global ecosystem. So again, it's in the cloud. It synchronizes information, ensure that all the ATP firewalls globally are proactively protected with each other, or from each other, or with each other, I guess. So the portfolio consists of currently 3 models: the ATP 200, the 500, and 800. The ATP 800 is just newly announced, and it's available to ship in March, so just in basically next week. You can get your orders in already to place a hold on any of them if you have some demand. This product's really perfect for customers who are upgrading, that have maybe WAN speeds that are upgrading over to like 200 megs or above. The current UTM kind of security boxes that you may be familiar with, like our USG product portfolio, is good for the smaller kind of throughput protection, right? So you have the lower throughput, but it's the only thing that it doesn't have, the previous UTM product, a USG, is that it's not adequate to protect against those unknown threats. So ATP is really that new advanced threat protection that you need. And of course, it provides for future proofing because it does support the higher throughput needs that are probably going to come through the requirements of the customer within the next couple of years. So Zyxel offers a partner program as well that puts really loyal partners first. The program is free, and the rewards for the partners with top tier benefits, really are really easy to kind of grasp. They have really low minimum sale requirements in there, but really you want to get to that gold tier. We're all about putting partners first, especially when you first start into the program. I don't know why the quality is a little bit low here. You're actually put into the middle silver tier. And so you get discounts off of distribution prices as high as 20% off when you hit to the gold tier, meaning that means more margin for you when selling hardware on top of your services. So you can really take advantage of that. And really, we're here to be your ally, your networking ally. So really take advantage of our sales team. You'll get access to sales engineers, pre-sales support, a dedicated sales rep who give you really a personal touch, and someone to call upon, especially if you have some issues with your order, things like that. We also work with distributors such as D&H, Ingram, Synix, and Wave. So that's just a little bit about Zyxel. Again, it's going to be a little bit of a quick share. But at this time, I'd like to open it up. If you want to have if you have a question, if you want to have a discussion with me, let me know. Either put that in the chat box or put it up in the Q&A section, and we can unmute you if you have a mute box. But I'm going to go ahead and let me turn this off for her. Let me go to the quality here so you can see. There you go. Here's what's coming up as well. If you follow us on Facebook, YouTube, we have our intro next week. We have Securing Business Networks on the 12th and UTM 101. Just a reminder, so you can keep your eye out for that. And if there are any questions, feel free to ask them at this time. And I know this is kind of a newer format, so what I'm proposing that is, next time, if you do have questions, or you could be make sure you have your mic ready, things like that, so we can have a kind of a one-on-one or one-on-many, I guess, discussion about any topics. But really, kind of one question I wanted to pose as well is to think about what kind of challenges are you facing to propose, when you're proposing network security to your customers? Like, is there kind of, how do you find it? Is it difficult to get them to buy in? What kind of education, kind of learning curve do you feel like is required? Now, you can always send me a message after the fact if you don't feel like you have a question here at this moment. You can email me, Tri, at Zyxel.com. And feel free to pose those questions to me. Another question that I wanted to ask as well is, what kind of network threats do you see most on the rise when you're out in the field? Are you really seeing a lot of people coming to you because they are infected with ransomware? Or are they dealing with other sorts of solutions or some sort of other issues that are out there? What kind of, are they dealing with employee filtering needs? Are they, really where is the where is the pulse right now of network security? What are you guys seeing in the field? So are there other kind of network security issues that you're dealing with, or people are they even looking at using higher speeds? Are you finding that people are finding their hardware is in a bottleneck, and is the ATP solution the right solution for you to propose to them? So that's great right there. And of course, we have our sales team that is, on standby. They're ready to help you as well. So we have, we have folks that will be able to call on you. So if you're not a partner, feel free to reach out, become a partner. Like I said, it is very beneficial to that. Any chance we can see James has asked, any chance we can see a live view of the ATP console and configuration pages? I'll have to prepare that next time. Right now, I don't have that kind of setup to do it. We do have a demo page, I believe, online, but we can get in touch with you, James, to see how we can get that information to you. And if not, we can always set up, if you are a partner with us, we can always set up the ability to go through the screens with you. But at the current moment, I don't have the addressing to get there to show you at the moment. Martin has a question. Now, I guess I could unmute you, but I'm not sure if you guys want to be unmuted. So right now, maybe we'll just do it as a Q&A session, but we'll do it as a voice one later on. What is the AV definition engine used by ATP devices? It's actually, I believe it's using the kind of the Bitdefender side of the AV definitions right now, Martin. So yeah, but it's kind of agnostic. It's all rolled in. The ATP is all bundled into, a web security and advanced threat security section, and they're all bundled into one. You can't buy kind of one service on its own a la carte anymore. It's really, if you're buying an ATP UTM device, we figure you're buying it for the service, right? So you're wanting to have the sandboxing and all of the overarching UTM functionalities. So it's kind of like, again, the analogy of the house security system. Why would you buy an ATP if you were just going to disable all or not even activate any of the security functions, right? So we bundle them. When you buy it out of the box, the ATP comes with 1 year of all the services fully loaded, and then it's just easy to renew after the fact. You can then add 1 or 2 years, et cetera, to the box after that. Or even when you first deploy, you can work with your customer to have let's say a 3-year contract, and you can load in 3 years into that device and not have to worry about the licensing for it for that. But most of our partners like to just put the 1 year at a time, even though they may have a 3-year contract, because then they don't have to put all that money all up front for that device in case something happens with the customer. So that kind of gives them the opportunity there. Yeah, thank you. There, I think what happens is I'm actually not using a shirt mic. It's actually using a boom mic right now. I think I have some sound problems. I'll work through that. I just have my earplugs in just in case that somebody was going to talk. But thank you for that, Carnegie. And there may be some pop noises, et cetera, because I think something is with my going on with the sound system here. Kevin had a question. I'm a partner in Canada, and a problem I've been having with Nebula is availability. 2 months to get a product. Is that better to move to ATP? Well, it depends on what you're doing. If you're looking at cloud solutions, then Nebula is your cloud solution. There is really no other option at the moment. We do have plans to put the ATP series into the cloud. So we'll have that available probably in the near future. You can work with your sales rep or Canadian sales rep to make sure that we have product available in there, because it shouldn't take 2 months, because we do have product here. There could be drop ship options and things like that we could do to provide it into Canada. So definitely reach out to your sales rep to identify where maybe the problem exists and make sure that the stock is available, because we do have stock here in the States. Yeah, especially if you want, make sure you reach out to the sales team. You can also email sales@zyxel.com if you don't have a particular sales rep that you know of that you work with. So yeah, just do that. 1G and 1.5G services. Kevin also had a comment. 1G and 5G services becoming common, and fiber is being run down our street right now. So added speed capability is appreciated. Yeah, definitely. It's even at that 1 gig and 1.5 gig, though, the problem will be that a lot of the hardware that currently is here today won't have the 2.5 gig standard ports in them. So they can't support that 1.5 gig. So usually the service provider will provide you maybe a switch that could be a 10 gig switch or a 2.5 gig switch to terminate that connection. But even then, they'll probably break it into gigabits so that you're sharing the 1.5 gig across more ports. So probably across gigabit ports. But your effective throughput, for the whole system is still 1.5 gig. But that's where kind of the problem may kind of come into play. You may end up having to have a firewall, at each one of those kind of breakout points. So you come to a switch, you have 2 ports that go out, maybe to 2 different firewalls, because maybe you're serving 2 segments of the network. That's probably your best option. Getting up to 1 gig UTM, it's still not there yet. I mean, right now, unless you're going with thousands of dollars in terms of the hardware, there's still, again, this discrepancy, or there's still that gap between gigabit, true gigabit UTM and where the hardware sits that makes sense for a small business where they have affordable kind of connectivity. So we're bridging that gap. So even getting up to our ATP 800, which is actually rated for 1.2 gigs of UTM throughput. So if you enabled both the antivirus intrusion detection and fully load it, it will do 1.2 gigs of throughput, which is the max throughput. So usually it's going to be around 600, 700, depending on your application, maybe even more. But just a safe kind of bet, it's at least 600 megabits per second of full UTM. And for the price point that it is in, you're not going to find anything that will push that kind of price point in the market today to be able to push both the UTM speed and the at that price point. So it's going to be kind of right now the only solution for that until, of course, a new iteration of hardware will be available. And again, the prices then drop on the hardware. But these are based on pretty much the newer chipsets that are available in the market. for the small business, kind of makes sense for the small business. You would have to go to, several $1,000 price a device, enterprise kind of class device in order to push higher than 1 gig. Does the ATP, Kevin had another question as well. Does the ATP line support SSL VPN? That's another problem with Nebula. Yeah, so the ATP does support it. It's still based on our USG series kind of product security line. And so it does have that SSL VPN. Of course, Nebula, we're looking at that, but it's kind of focused on the connectivity between offices to make sure that it's connected. So that is kind of it does have still L2TP, but in the Nebula space. So SSL is kind of not there yet. Thank you for the questions, by the way. All right, fantastic. I think if there are no other questions, oh wait, what is it? Kevin had another question. What is the price of the annual service? And can it be purchased up front for multiple years? So yes, you'll have to check your price list, check with your sales team, and also check with, if you're working with distribution, on what the discount or what's the actual price. We have an MSRP that's posted in our price list, but you'll have to check your sales representative to get that price. Typically, it is almost about the price of the hardware bundle right now. So it depends. I think it might be even like 50% of what the price of the hardware plus the bundle is. So just take a look at that. And yes, it can be purchased up front. It's up to you on how you want to manage it. You can buy 1 or 2 year licenses bundles to add on top of the 1 year that's already there. So you can do multiple years if you want to kind of upfront spend that much. But like I mentioned before, you can manage all of these licenses and systems yearly if you'd like, just so you don't have to put that up front because you're charging maybe your customer a monthly basis. But if you're charging them, hey, a one flat fee or one-time fee for all 3 years, then it's just perfectly fine for you to get those licenses and load them in. But of course, if you're running kind of a managed service provider kind of mentality, you can buy the 1 year, charge them month to month kind of thing without having to deal with the upfront. And of course, all these licenses are managed through our portal, which is myzyxel.com. So if you don't have an account there, make sure you do get that set up. And also as a tip as well, if you are a partner or an approved reseller, there is a button at the top that says request reseller view. And what that does is it gives you access to some other menu systems that's kind of tailored towards a managed service provider or a reseller. So click on that, make the request, and also then reach out to your sales rep and tell them that you want this view. So then we can enable that, make sure that you get that. And also you'll be then listed in one of the, as a partner that can, when people are registered, or when you register your devices, you can choose yourself or choose the VAR partner as the kind of the VAR enabled, that's managed by you. And also, if you have any purchase questions or challenges getting inventory from distribution, please email sales@zyxel.com, or you can also reach out to Jacob as well, and he can pass this on. His email is one of our sales rep is jacob.olson@zyxel.com. When the license expire, James had a question. When license expire, does all protection stop, or just the new updates? So in the ATP series, and actually in the new versions of the USGs as well, when the security license expires, it actually will stop working. We actually give you a 15-day grace period, which is actually a lot longer than a lot of the competitors out there right now. We actually give you 15 days to kind of get your licenses renewed, et cetera. So, it will stop. So it not only just stops the signature updates, but the functionality will just not work. So if you have a virus scan going, then the virus scans will stop. But it will, again, like I said, it will notify you 30 days out, 15 days out, several days out, when it's expired. It's trying to knock on your door, make sure that you get that done. And so if you're managing it, then you should be able to get that notification before it really expires. And then of course, you also still have then 2 weeks after that expiration date to kind of put it together. But does the hardware stop working? No, the hardware will still work. So everything where you're doing routing, the NAT functionalities, the other firewall rules, those will all still work. It's only, let's say, for example, the ATP has sandboxing, antivirus, content filtering, intrusion detection. Those services that are part of the license, those ones will basically stop working. But your normal functionality of the device itself, even if you were to not renew at all, they will still work as a SPI firewall with firewall rules, DHCP, all your VLAN settings, those policies and NAT4 rules, everything will still work. It's just the scanning, the kind of the threat management portion of that will stop to work. That's a good question. Thank you. Oops. Didn't mean to click that. Are there any other questions? If there are no other questions, again, thank you so much for joining on this kind of inaugural Tech Talk with Zyxel. I'm glad that you could be here. Hopefully we'll see you again at another session. Like I mentioned before, we'll do another one. We have a new partner introduction next week. So if you are there, I'd advise you, if you haven't been to one, to go to one, because we then cover an entire, kind of the entire portfolio in about an hour. Just to give you a high level view, kind of the key selling points of things, and get you kind of introduced into what Zyxel does. Kevin asks a question as well. What is there a cost for SSL VPN client? So for Windows, the SSL VPN client is actually free. It's included. You can just download that. Before, we were able to kind of push it through Java, but of course the browsers these days are very secure conscious, so they don't allow for that anymore. So you actually have to go and grab it for your Windows client. So there's a link through the SSL VPN kind of pages where you can download the SSL VPN client for Windows. For Mac, you actually have to purchase it. We actually have a SSL VPN client that we sell. That's kind of just a nominal fee, basically, to cover for that product, and you can buy that for the Mac, and then you can load that in and provide the SSL. But of course, the product already comes with IPsec and also L2TP over IPsec. If you would like to use those, that we typically already integrated into all the systems that are out there. I will make note of that, Kelly. Yes, I understand that about the VPN client. All right. I think that is it for now. Again, we just wanted to make it quick, interactive. Hopefully next time we'll be more. I'll be more prepared on getting the folks to be able to talk live with me. That's what I kind of want to have, is not only through chat but also through kind of live interactions. So if you guys are, I need to find a way to see how to bridge the gap between a Q&A and maybe you guys raising your hand that you guys want to talk. So that way I know to unmute you to be able to talk. So until next time, again, thank you for choosing Zyxel as a partner. We look to have more of these to educate you as a partner, make you more comfortable with using Zyxel, because like I said, I've been here for 15 years, and I love the product, and I use it myself, my house, all that kind of stuff in my previous business, and everything. So really stand by the product, and I look forward to seeing how we could help you to pitching and using Zyxel both in your company but also for your customers. So until next time, thank you for joining, and we'll see you again soon.